We live?
Yes.
Knock, knock.
Oh, God. Who's there?
Doc.
Doc who?
Doc called fucking dibs. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, the Dork Shared Universe and Geeks Worldwide Radio proudly presents to you the greatest podcasting team in the world. He's your Fry guy, Nick Friar. I'm Docky Dibs, and we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby. Nicholas, how's it going?
How the hell did you make it through all that? I'm on air professionally, and I can't hold my shit together half the fucking time. How do you make it through that?
When you go back and watch the video, you'll either see me have my eyes closed or looking away, so you don't see the look on your dumb faces.
There you go. Smart man. Because I don't know how I didn't burst out into tears on that one. My goodness, I was fighting it back for sure. But yes, Joe does call dibs from time to time. Sometimes I say fuck it. But anyways, on the days that we don't call dibs are usually the days that we have interviews on the show. And I just want to make sure we don't have any interviews in the hopper right now, but you never know when they're going to be coming down the line. Friar Side Chats, you can only find them on our audio platform. So make sure you subscribe to us on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to your podcast, Amazon Music as well. Make sure you subscribe there. Leave a rating and review to 5 stars. Otherwise, you're going to find out the real meaning of Backrack. And I'm going to tell you guys, it's not that great. So make sure you subscribe. And the highest rating and review that you can give us there, very much appreciated. We got another main line, back-to-back main lines. I feel like we've been getting pockets of back-to-back main lines mixed in more and more. Joe, obviously, last month was very heavy on the Friar Side Chats. We did a few State of the Unions, which was a lot of fun. Go listen to those if you guys haven't already. But we got a little James Gunn inspired episode planned for the people today, which I think is appropriate timing now that Ant-Man, I've already seen it. It's in my rear view. I know you're going to see it. Time to move forward to DC, who seems to have quite a bit of momentum.
Yeah. The announcement is a couple of weeks old, right?
Yep.
But we haven't had a chance to, this actually came together last minute, but when he rattled off all those titles and his inspiration for some of those titles, it got us thinking, let's dig into some of these books here. And so why not make it a Super Tuesday, which we have today, which we'll dive into in a little bit. And very excited for today.
Yep, we still got to sort out a few other things because there are a few titles that I think were like bear discussing. Whatever. Anyways, we should talk about them at some point. You and I still need to sort it out down the line. But let's get to a quick catching up. Actually, you know what? I don't even want to talk about the book that I was catching up on because I'm going to dig into the title that came out this week from that title later on. And I know you haven't been catching up. Lord knows we didn't have time between trying to get ready for.
Yeah, it was school vacation week, right? So no free time, and there was a shit ton of books to read this week.
We got shit ton of books this week, and obviously we're getting ready for the mainline stuff. So let's dig right into what's new. And why don't you start us off with Marvel like you normally do?
Yeah. All right. Strap in and strap on. This list is long, baby. We have The Amazing Spider-Man issue 20, Thor 31, She-Hulk issue 10, Deadpool issue 4, Carnage issue 10, Immoral X-Men. Now, when I first wrote this, I go, you fucking idiot, you fucking typed it wrong. And I was about to type Immortal X-Men. I go, but that doesn't make sense. But no, it is Immoral X-Men. And some of these covers, oh boy, hubba. We have Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 5, Star Wars Dr. Aphra issue 29, Yoda issue 4, Savage Avengers issue 10, Strange Academy Finals issue 4, Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise issue 4, Sabretooth and the Exiles issue 4. A lot of issue 4s coming out.
Weird.
Planet Hulk Worldbreaker issue 4, Betsy Braddock Captain Britain issue 1, Punisher War Journal Base issue 1. I meant to get to this week. I didn't get a chance. I definitely want to check that out. Tiger Division issue 4. It's the Bobby Orr week. And Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Double Trouble. There we go.
Look 4. At you.
There we go. I remember the shorthand. I get so tired of writing out these fucking mile-long titles. But yeah, the week of issue 4s.
We don't have too many long titles coming out from Image. Of course, that means I get to read them off and not you, because fuck you. We got Saga issue 62 out this week. Monstrous 43. Ice Cream Man 34. Kind of weird how we got the inverse there. The Scorched issue 15, of course, from friend of the show, Sean Lewis. Junkyard Joe, the Backcracker story, issue 5. Black Cloak issue 2. Radiant Pink issue 3. Spawn Unwanted Violence issue 2. Lovesick issue 5, a title that Joe thought he'd get me to read, but I'm not a dumbass like him. Issue 1.
I forgot I put that in there.
Local Man issue 1. The title that Joe wanted me to read off was My name's Nick Friar and I stink. So there you go. I just want to point out too, there's no apostrophe in names, so it's not grammatically correct. So again, burned. Local Man issue 1 plus. What's plus issue 4? That's not. Is that the title? Plus or pious? What is that?
Maybe. I don't know.
All right.
Could be. Yeah.
Anyways, Undiscovered Country issue 23, of course, talked about that title way back early on in the show's history, in our show's history. The Magic Order issue, volume 4, issue 2. I talked about the first 2 volumes of that on the show not too long ago. I think that was in the last year. Volume 3 is out in trade paperback form this week. So if you trade weighted like I did, I'm not going to do that with Magic Order 4. I'm getting right on these, but volume 3 of the Magic Order, I'll be picking up that trade this week. Love that stuff from Mark Millar. 20th Century Men, issue 6. Voyages, issue 4. Immortal Sergeant, issue 2. And then, Joe, we have 2 titles that we both have been reading that we want to talk about. What?
Plush, issue 4.
Plush. Okay.
Plush.
Thank you. Okay. That makes more sense. All right. All right. So we have 2 titles we want to talk about this week from Image. I'll let you pick which one we dig into first.
Let's go with the Infernal Girl Red first, because the second book here, holy smokes, I feel like we might end up doing the entire show on it. It was that fucking good. But Infernal Girl Red issue 2, like the first issue. Now we talked with Michael Busatil about this. This was a book that it was in the hopper a long time ago, because it started off on Kickstarter, and when it finally came out on print, like I remember when we were both talking about it, we're like, yeah, it took a little bit to get going, and I think I enjoyed the issue 1 a bit more than you did, especially the way that it ended. I thought that was a great ending, and these issues are a little bit longer, but a great story. We get more. I think what I loved about it was the world of Radiant. Again, all these titles, it keeps expanding, but I think we got a little bit more. I'm really enjoying this character, and I loved a lot of the stuff we got again towards the end of the issue.
Yeah, so I took a little bit longer to get to this. This also was these issues, single issues, are a little bit longer than most. They're like 60 pages, so I didn't get to finish the first issue in time for the show, but I liked it. You did not oversell this when you talked about it last time. This is an awesome series, awesome start to it, and this first one's only going to be 3 issues. And like last time, I know you talked about how Matt Groom set everything up, and I think the second issue picks up where the first one left off, does a great job moving things forward and everything. And of course, the ending, very interesting. But I think what blew me away, and of course, in the first issue, obviously you noticed the artwork, but Erica Durso's, I believe, I'm probably not saying her name right, but Erica Durso's artwork in this issue even more so blew my mind. I think, and it's probably because we get more of Inferno Girl Red and action and everything like that. And there's no shortage of that at all in this issue, where last time, kind of more of an origin story, as much as this is all still an origin story. But my God, Joe, her work is mind blowing. And then what Igor Monti is the colorist too. But both of their work together is so clean, and also so flashy, but not too over the top, because there's so many other moments too that are a little bit more like plenty of like in between moments throughout this, because she's at a school and everything like that, and adjusting to that. So I'm blown away by the art and through these first 2 issues, but the second one, it really stood out even more so to me.
Well, I think I said this when we talked about the first issue, and I think, yeah, you're right. You only got about halfway through, but this feels the most Radiant book outside of Radiant Black that there is. Like, we know Rogue Sun takes place in that universe, right? The Deadline. All right, we know all these books take place in this universe, and maybe it's because like this was this was a Kickstarter. It was in development, or at least, it was being created at the same time, as Radiant Black. So maybe that's why they feel so similar to each other. But that's what I love about it, because I love, sort of the origins of each of these characters are, from Radiant Black and Infernal Girl Red. I think the art fits perfectly, in that universe. It's very similar to the art I feel like we get in, if not even a little bit better than what we get, in Radiant Black. Like, it's just an excellent book all around.
Well, I think the other thing that Michael mentioned to us was that Infernal Girl Red is, as much as it's like she's more in the same multiverse, I believe is what it is. 'Cause I think she actually comes in from an entirely different universe, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be
Right.
part of why. But yeah, but I hear you, like where it's like how it bears more of a resemblance to Radiant Black than like the Dead Lucky and Rogue Sun do. But also like I will say too, the mom, what they're doing with her in Infernal Girl Red is like, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that we've ever seen that with a like a parental figure that wasn't also a superhero
Yeah.
previously. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting little addition.
Yeah. The well, I don't.
Yeah, be careful there, killer.
Yeah. I was about to say something innocuous, but it would have, like,
Yep.
so I didn't. Get
I
back
will
up.
say the main cover, because I've only seen the main cover. That character who's on there with Infernal Girl Red, who, as you would imagine, we see in this issue. I love this main cover too,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think this was. Oh, that I don't know if it was Erica or Valeria Fakovia, because she did a cover as well. But anyways, really cool stuff from Infernal Girl Red. Now, there was another image book that you and I wanted to dig into, and I think this was the first one that I read from the new releases this week. And I mean, right then and there, I was like, this is. We've talked about it with Philadelphia. Okay, we got issue 28 this week. They have been doing a thing for a while now, and if you're behind, I'll keep it vague in a sense. But they've been doing this. Like Rodney has been writing it this way,
It's a
and
war. It's a war's
yes,
been brewing.
or a war has been brewing. But I mean, there's a specific thing that he's been doing, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
done
Yeah.
it each issue, and he did it less so in this issue, but it's still pretty clear. It still has made it still works so well every single time. And I think that's just mind blowing. Whenever you can know something is coming still, for the writer to telegraph it and it's still done so well and you still love it, that just says a lot. That's not just limited to comics. That's prose. I mean, even heck, if it's in a show or a movie or whatever. But I don't want to hog all the Philadelphia talk, because I could go on. So what were some of your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we were talking about this before we went on, right? Like, what happened in this issue, Rodney alluded to last time he was on the show, which was what, almost a year ago or so.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe not quite, but a long time ago. And it's not that you forget about it, but so much has happened and so much is going on each issue. Issue after issue after issue, it's just been so action packed. It's been so visceral, been so vicious. That when it comes and it hits you, it's like, holy shit. And even the way, it's been building over the last 2 arcs or 3 arcs, really, since we were first introduced to these 2 characters, really. But the way that's been built, but the way it was built in this particular issue with the narration, and then when we get the splash, when we get that image, that if you've been reading Philadelphia and you're listening, when you see it, you're gonna go, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's jaw dropping, it's eyeball emojis, it is fucking fire. And
Mhm.
and from what a little birdie has told us, they're even gonna fucking like scratch the surface of what's gonna be approaching. Not that
Mhm.
we know, we were just told,
Yep. But no
keep them
specifics.
papers
Yep.
popped, right?
Yep. 100%.
And which says something, because of the high level that this book has been at, issue
Mhm.
after issue after issue,
Yeah.
especially this one, man. Like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah. 100%. And also in the course of where we as much as we've been talking about some of the shocking developments that have been happening in the course of the war, and it makes sense, of course, in wartime, those kind of things are going to happen. There's also been something else happening adjacent to all the
Mm,
fighting that's going on in Philadelphia with Anansi. And
yeah.
I have no problem mentioning that. What's like everything that's brewed over there, and then what happens in this specific issue, didn't see it coming, and
No.
it's kind of just like damn, like that's
Yeah.
the only way I can say the way that ended.
That's cold.
Yeah, yeah. But yes, as you mentioned, Joe, there's like a thing that Rodney had told us about that we talked about when we had him on last, was about a year ago. We will be circling back with him at some point soon, but he alluded to something that we were both blown away by, and he said, "Well, wait till you see this," and it's here. So if you
Yeah.
guys want to piece that together, by all means, go ahead. But you gotta have to go back and listen to the episode probably to remember. Like you said, I'd forgotten, but once I saw this, I was like, oh wait, like what about what Rodney told us? And then it's like, oh, okay, yep, this is really well done,
All
really
right,
really
all
awesome
right,
stuff.
all right, okay.
Hmm.
So, but the question is though, like really, like even Jason Sean Alexander, I think had a tweet out, late last week. It was like, I just, read the, the script or whatever, or did the final art or whatever it was for,
Hmm.
the issue 30 of Philadelphia, and he's just like a bunch of like eyeball tear emojis, crying emojis. So like, but that could
Hmm.
mean anything, right? Is it a death? Is it sentimental? Like, who knows? It could
Hmm.
could be anything really at this point. Uh, but it's so fucking good.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the best series out there. We've said it time and again. If you haven't read the series yet, Joe talked about it a while back. Listen to that, and then just start picking up the trades. Like you don't waste time. Like get right on it. I wouldn't say encourage trade waiting for this arc, but at the same time, we're almost at the end. So if you can't get the first three issues of this volume, then the trade will be out at some point this year, I would think. But
Yeah.
anyways, awesome stuff. Let's move over to Boom, Joe. Why don't you take us through it?
Oh, this was so we've been talking about like, oh, Boom hasn't, put out a ton of, they've been a little bit of light each week. Well, they came out this week fucking swinging.
Yep.
We have Something is Killing the Children, issue 29. So, again, man, this you want to talk about another book
Mm.
that just keeps getting better and better and better. Like Something is Killing the Children, Tynan just keeps fucking literally killing it with this
I thought
fucking
you were
book.
going to say another amazing book that Joseph Fillmore Gilmore talked about on the show.
I did early on too,
Mm,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm.
hey, what can I say? I have an eye for talent.
Ah.
Damn Them All, issue 5 by a friend of the show, Cy Spurrier.
Mhm.
Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue 4. Dune, House of Harkonnen, issue 2. Again, if you're a Dune fan, read these, comic tie-ins to this world. Brian Herbert absolutely fucking kills it. Tremendous.
Mm.
And then we got 2 books this week again that we want to talk about from Boom. I'll lead it off, I'll just touch upon this briefly. This series ended earlier than I thought it was. So Specs issue 4. I've loved it right from the get go. It's been a really good story. I wasn't expecting it to end at issue 4.
Mm.
Because I feel like there was more story to tell. There was some avenues they could have either gone down or they could have gotten a little more fun with it. I don't say those things as negatives because I really enjoyed the series. I'm on the fence whether I will discuss it on the show or not. Because I wish there was a little bit more meat on the bone. That's not, to say like
Mm.
the quality of it, it was good. Just needed a little bit more there.
Mm.
But Specs from Boom Studios, it's definitely worth reading. Excellent book.
That's too, you hate to see when things get like cut short at the end like that. And I wonder too if it's like has to do with sales and things like that. So that's nothing we ever want to see. But we got another book from Boom that we are both reading that we did want to touch on. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers TMNT Volume 2 Issue 3 is out this week, and we've talked about it, like how Dan Mora, obviously, I mean, not enough can be said about that man's artwork. It's freaking insane. And if you read the second issue, if you're all up to date, you read the second issue, you know the reveal at the end of that issue. Get right into it in this issue. So that was really awesome. I know Dan Mora's been tweeting about it, and I also know that Dan Mora tweeted an image when this title was first announced. I don't want to say what it is in case people forgot about it. Let you still have the surprise of this issue. But there was a development that I know you, Joe, were right with me, waiting for this kind of thing to happen. It been, a visual thing that was going to be really cool. It happened in this issue, and I mean, action figures. I mean, this series is going to at least you have Casey, which that's not unless if you haven't read anything, Casey, there's going to be an action figure for him more than likely, and then there should be what 6 more action figures, without saying who, that we're going to get from this volume of MMPR TMNT?
Yeah, I'd say so, and I'd hope so. This is just a fun as hell series. I never read the first arc. I read that right before the second volume or the second arc started. It's just I was never a big Power Rangers guy. I've come to appreciate them more and more, especially the books, because you love them so much.
Mm.
But I'll always be a Ninja Turtle guy, and it's just such a great combination. And Parrot is just, you could tell he's having fun, and like you said, Mora's art, man, like he was meant for shit like this, right?
Yeah.
Just great action scenes, fighting scenes, kick ass, fucking splash pages. This is a fun as hell series. Definitely worth checking out.
100%. And the fun's not going to stop there with TMNT and crossovers into other properties too. We got it was announced last week, I think, right, that TMNT and Street Fighter is going to have a crossover thing. I'm here for it, man.
No, I'm 100% here for it. Yeah, that shit's going to be wild because, again, it's like I remember, it's funny enough, one of the first Tynan books I had read was actually Batman TMNT. Right, like, so I love these crossovers, these like pairings that you just don't think would work, and they do. Like TMNT Power Rangers fucking works. TMNT Street Fighter is gonna fucking work, right? So like, I'm looking forward to that. This shit's fun as hell.
I forgot that Tynan was the one that wrote Batman TMNT. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Those are great. That's a fun series right there. Because you know what? Because you also got it's James Tynan the fourth, and then Freddie Williams is the second is the artist. So like I forgot. I always remember Freddie Williams was on that because every time I see his artwork, oh my god, some of the covers for MMPR TMNT Volume 2 Issue 3, like a mouthful of a title, but it does make a little more sense. I will say that it has nothing to do with the fact that Ryan Parrott's a friend of the show that we're apologizing for it. But the title that we have there, I mean, the cover that we have with Raph and Tommy, the Green Ranger this week.
Yeah,
I need that. And that's Freddie Williams, if I'm not mistaken. So,
nice.
Some really cool stuff.
It's been a great series.
Then we can want to move over to AWA as usual. They only have one single issue coming out this week, Joe, but it is a title that you are reading.
Yeah, so from AWA this week, I read Year Zero, Volume 0, Issue 5, which was the finale. And I've talked about this book each month when it's come out, and just what a great job Daniel Krause has done, like carrying the mantle that Benjamin Percy, started when he wrote the first 2 volumes. And I think the characters in this volume, because what's great about Year Zero is it's sort of following sort of like this zombie apocalypse, and with this being sort of a prequel to those first 2 volumes, you're getting a lot of the origins and how the outbreak sort of started. But I think I've enjoyed the characters in this volume, like across the board, more than the first 2. And that's not a knock on volumes 1 and volumes 2 by Benjamin Percy, but like, I don't know, there was a little bit more of some of the main characters. I think Daniel Krause just, he fleshed out a little bit more, like you were very sympathetic for, and this was a pretty emotional issue. And the way that it ends, and the way that sort of each character arc ends, and how they end, and knowing where the story goes from here, it was fucking excellent. It was so good. Like Daniel Krause, like you could read all 3 of these volumes and feel like it was almost the same writer. Like his command of the story, of the setting, of the tone, was perfect. Like, they couldn't have gotten a better person, to do this other than Benjamin himself. Because we've seen
Mm.
that from time to time. Like, we've seen these world, like, especially with Marvel and DC, like, you've got different writers taking over properties that we know and love, and sometimes they're absolute home runs. A lot of times they're very good, and sometimes they're just like, what the fuck was that? Rick Grayson. But you know what I mean? And so,
Mm.
like, that I think that's a testament to Daniel Krauss, and to Benjamin, for just creating such a great universe. And so this is something that I definitely recommend if you're a Zed head and you love zombie shit. Like, this is a title you should be reading, right?
Mhm.
And if you are waiting for the graphic novel to come out, right, the trade to come out, get cracking, no pun
Mhm.
intended,
Mhm.
on volumes 1 and 2, right? Start reading them, because you can read those two first and read this one, and not be completely lost, right? So
Mhm.
excellent stuff all around.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you've said a lot about Year Zero, and it's some awesome stuff for sure, as per usual from AWA. Let's move over to Dark Horse. There's a first issue that I know you're going to want to talk about. Let me go through these and so you can catch your breath before you dig into that. We got Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, The Nameless Terror, issue 1, Hellboy in Love, issue 3, The Ones, issue 4, Dead Mall, issue 4. A lot of issue 4s everywhere this week.
Yeah.
Dragon Age: The Missing, issue 2. There is a Dark Horse book that I want to talk about this week, but would you like to talk about the other one first?
Yeah, because we talk about my Chip. We also got to talk about my James.
Mm.
So Blue Book issue 1. So this is a book I believe was one of the first books that Tynan did when he first announced he was doing stuff exclusively on Substack. And I think this was a Substack book. And now it's coming out in print through Dark Horse. And I am beyond mad at myself, Nicholas, for not knowing that this book was coming out um, through Dark Horse ahead of time, because I would have loved to have talked about this book when we had Daniel and Kara on
Yep.
for the
Yeah.
State
No,
of the
that was.
Union, and and
Yep.
and and, dive, and dove, dived, doved, divid into this title a little bit more. But
Mm.
this was an excellent book. I mean, it's
Point.
it's 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 classic, James Tynan. Like, his writing, is excellent. And what was different about it is, Tynan's worked with a lot of different writers, I mean, artists, I should say. And they all, generally have a pretty, similar feel. Like, not to say that where there's Deladera and oh jeepers, the artist on uh, um,
What's the title?
the nice house on the
Oh,
lake, Martina Alvaro, um
jeez.
oh
Alvaro
jeepers.
Martinez Bueno.
Yes, thank you, Jesus. Old man moment, right?
Jeez.
Two completely different styles, but both have a very, like, sort of, dark feel to them, right? And so with Blue Book, it's a completely different style that I just don't necessarily associate with Tynan's writing,
Hmm.
but it works very well. And it's a book. It's about aliens, and I couldn't be any more all in. It was just great. Great. It's any Tynan book is. It's very well paced. It's very well layered. You get a great feel for who the characters are right away, and just the setting of it. It's got all the hallmarks of just a classic TLDR Tynan book,
Ooh.
and I can't wait. I can't wait. You see where it says there? Oh, you got rid of
Well, yeah. When it says what's new on the screen, you can't also have these new little
yeah.
things.
Well, right. It says I
Yep.
called dibs under my
Yep.
name there. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
dibs.
Yes.
It was absolutely fantastic.
As if I would ever take a James Tynan book from you like that.
That might end the show.
I can see
Legit might
that.
end the show.
I could see that. Yeah, that might set you off. But then also from Dark Horse this week, we got The Witcher, The Ballad of Two Wolves, issue 3. Of course, by Bartosz Stibber, who we now know how to pronounce his name correctly. So that's great. Also, we got Mickey Montolo, who we've talked about his art for this series a little bit. And obviously with Bartos, I believe he's written now 3 Witcher stories, and he's worked with 3 different artists each time. And not that it's a contest about who's better, because it's art and and everything's subjective. But I will say that if they like wanted to like, if they're ever thinking, oh, maybe we'll stick with one artist for Bartos as long as he's writing The Witcher, Mickey would be a great fit. I really feel that way, especially after this issue, because the other ones have been a little bit darker. I feel like from a coloring standpoint, because Mickey does the colors here too, and this right away is very bright, despite like where you're starting off this story. And I just love the feel of his work in this world. And then just from when you're looking at the story and Bartos' stuff, I, anytime Geralt is around like a somewhat attractive woman, like it's just always like you're in for like a little bit of a chuckle, just because he's generally viewed as a very good looking guy. Not as much here as Henry Cavill maybe, but still a very good looking individual. So I always get a chuckle out of that.
It's hard out there for a pimp, Friar. It's hard out there, but no. So I feel like the last 3 Witcher titles, the art, I feel like the first one and this one a lot more similar. The second one, it was sketchier, right, if I remember correctly, and like some of the lettering or that we had sort of in the background was a little distracting, but still all 3 titles really, really great. But I do love the art in this, because this really does feel Witcher-esque.
Yes.
Right. And especially some of the stuff that we've gotten up until this point, like when it decides to get vicious, it's vicious and it's great, and it fits, like everything about this title, right, feels like this is the Witcher that I know and love and have grown accustomed to and expect, to be honest with you. So the story, again, there wasn't a ton of action in this story, but it's definitely setting up for what should be a very, I believe the 4 issues, right?
Yep, 4 issues.
Should be a very epic, finale here. And so we've learned how to pronounce Stibber's last name, but we still could be butchering his first name.
No, we checked on that. We got it.
Did
right.
we?
Yeah, it's Bartos. Right? Yeah, I mean, we'll find out if we get him on the show. Yeah,
which I would love. Because you come to find out, maybe we were all wrong, right? Everyone was wrong, and we really all been butchering it. But
I guess he takes joy in people getting his name wrong. Found that out too.
He does.
So.
But again, if you're a Witcher fan, these are great companion pieces, just as the Dune books are great companion pieces to that world.
Yeah, and it's not just like if you're a Witcher fan and you're like Joe, who's I have the first book, but I haven't read it yet. You've listened to some of the audiobooks, right? Not all of them. You've listened to all the audiobooks. So, and you played the game too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I fell in love with it when the show came around. I knew about it, but I hadn't looked into it much. So if you're someone like me who's very like green when it comes to, Witcher content, I guess, or whatever, because there's so much out there. These are great. Like these are great, like little things that you can just pick up for anybody, any Witcher fan, because as long as they haven't read it, it's just like, it's a nice thing that they can read at any time and only have so much knowledge of the character and get away with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, these comics are great because it's great storytelling, but B, the way that Bartos has writes them, it's not like you're missing any of these great references, as long as you're like just at least vaguely familiar with and it's always described in the beginning of the book, a Witcher is someone who gets paid to kill monsters. That's all you need to know to enjoy these books.
Yeah, and that him and Dandelion have a history. Like I know it's a different name in the show, but still,
he's been fucking phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, even in this issue is no different with that. All right, let's move over. Let's see, we got a few others that we got to get to, and I think we got 2 books left that we each want to dig into. Why don't you take us through the next couple publishers?
Okay, yeah, because not a lot from the indies this week. I mean, Dark Horse, Boom, and Image had a bunch, but from Vault we have Barbaric, Hell to Pay, issue 2, and Godfell, issue 1. From Valiant we have Book of Shadows, issue 4. That's been a great series. From Titan, if Newbury Comics doesn't have this, I'm definitely going to grab it digitally because I am a Sherlock stan. From Titan, we have Moriarty, Clockwork Empire, issue 1.
Ooh.
From Dynamite, we have Darkwing Duck issue 2 and Gargoyles issue 3 for those of you
I'm probably gonna
nostalgic for the 90s.
I'm probably gonna pick these up. I have the first 2 issues of Gargoyles, and I haven't read it yet, and I have the first issue of Darkwing, and, like, I wanna give them a chance. And it's like, I'm just gonna buy them all and then watch. I'll hate the first issue of both. But they're cool covers. Like, the covers of these have been really well done, especially if
Yeah.
you're nostalgic, for that stuff.
For sure. From Aftershock, I know, like, we've got, we
Mhm.
said earlier we were going to kind of, but still, we want to support the writers and the creators, so we're not going to completely shun Aftershock. But we have Bulls of Beacon Hill issue 2, which I read the first issue of, loved it, so I'll be looking for this. Vineyard issue 4.
Mhm.
From Frank Miller Presents, we have Ronin book 2 issue 2, and then from Comixology, Nicholas.
Wait, before I say Comixology, we actually skipped IDW. Dead
Oh
Seas
shit!
issue 3, and then Star Trek Strange New Worlds Illyrian Enigma issue 3.
Thank you, Nicholas. I
Of course.
apologize. I
Teamwork.
scrolled down
Yep.
before it's
I know. It's tough.
premature scrolling, Nick. It affects
Uh,
everyone.
it does. It's
You
an
know,
epidemic. It really
it
is.
is. It really is. But Comixology, Canary issue 5, take it away.
Yeah, Canary. So this is the penultimate issue of Canary, which leads me to believe. Look, I'm going to talk about this at length on the show when this is all done. You're going to have to wait, like you made me wait with Book of
The only
Evil.
thing you could talk about at length.
Oh wow! But I am going to talk about it when we start getting near to Dark Horse putting it out in the collected edition. But I'm thinking like this is shaping up to be a movie, because if we're only going to get 6 issues, then that's probably going to be the best fit. Dude, it got so that Canary 4, I actually didn't get a chance to read it previously. That was the one book that I caught up on. So I read that and then read this. And it's like it's a Western and everything like that. And it's moved at an even pace, but there's a mystery and everything like that in here too. This like it kind of there was an interesting twist, obviously. Obviously, there was an interesting twist in the 4th issue, and then we get to the 5th issue, and now everything's kind of going haywire. Things are going to kind of going batshit. But there's also like another layer to this onion. Like there was always something that was looming that I wasn't sure about, and now it's like it's come to even more to the forefront of things in issue 5. But there's still more to be peeled back. I absolutely love this title. Like this might be my favorite of the Scott Tober books, and I'm loving Book of Evil and everything like that. But man, like this shit is this
Yeah,
thing's real
you
good.
you've been on. I mean, since you read the first issue, I remember you saying, "Oh shit, this is I think my favorite one," and you knew that from the get go. It's funny, with the Scott Tober books, in that like when you look at the names and sort of the artists that Scott was working with, we sort of like we had our own sort of personal rankings on what we
Mm.
think we would like, more versus a little bit less, and for me at least, what I found is that like, man, I'm a fucking idiot. What the hell do I know, right? Because they've all been great, but
Yeah.
I think you know, 2 of the books I've loved the most are not 2 that I would have like. For me, I would have thought um, um,
Clear.
Demons
Oh,
and
Jim.
The Clear were going to be like hands down my like boom number 1. We have Demons and Clear, my favorite with a bullet, and then sort of everything would filter through. But
Mm.
Night of the Ghoul, Canary, right? I mean, not Canary, Barnstormers,
Yeah.
right? Barnstormers absolutely has just continued to blow me away.
Hmm.
And it just again, it's a testament, to Scott's writing and how he can tell a story and tell a vast array of stories across different genres and have them all be just as good, if not better than, what you'd expect.
Yeah, and speaking of that too, as I was him, what he can do across different genres, just where he like how he incorporates mystery. And I'm not saying like in westerns you can't have mysteries, but the way he does that, and like I said, how it's been layered, I actually hadn't thought about it to the degree of like it's like there was something I was thinking about, and then this pops up again, and then there's something else going on, like it's like a mystery within a mystery, and then we're adding this last wrinkle in the 5th issue. Like it's he's done a really impressive job in this title, and Dan Panosian too. I mean, I know I just talked about Alice Ever After from him over at Boom Studios. I love his art style, man. Like he does
Yeah.
a really, really good job. Never mind, and his work as a writer is impressive too. So, and obviously he's doing Black Tape right now with Dalibor Taichi. I know it's a sore subject. I'm sorry, shouldn't have brought it up. But yeah, Canary, you're gonna want to read this thing as soon as I'm done talking about it on the show in a mainline episode.
Well, I've said this time and time again about Scott's storytelling, right? And it's true. It's like you've got all these threads out there, and then when he finally pulls them all together, it's just
Mm-hmm.
hit you like a sack of bricks. So
Yep.
awesome stuff.
It's been really subtle with some of the stuff here. It's been like it's like things that's itching at the back of your head, and then like you start seeing a lot of it, and then he goes away from it, and it's like, oh, we're not gonna okay, like it makes sense because you have other issues at hand. But man, yeah, I've really it's Canary's awesome stuff. But anyways, then we wrap things up with DC because of course we have a DC thing planned for everybody today. Nightwing 101, which you and I are both reading. The Flash 793, Batman Superman World's Finest issue 12, Wonder Woman 796 coming on 800 issues of Wonder Woman, Catwoman 52, One Bad Day, Clayface, that's of course a Batman book, one off, Deceased War of the Undead Gods issue 6, which I believe is the penultimate issue there, Lazarus Planet Omega issue 1, Black Adam issue 8, Superman Space Age issue 3, Titans Blood Pact issue 6, Harley Quinn the animated series Legion of Bats issue 5, GCPD The Blue Wall issue 5, and then Joe, there is a first issue that I believe you picked up or that you read the review copy of.
Yeah, so I did pick it up because I wanted to
Oh,
have a copy of this, and so Superman issue 1, written by Joshua Williamson, who I loved when he was the writer on Robin. He was also a big part of the event that's been going on at DC. So he's been involved in pretty much everything. Uh, you know, well, I shouldn't say he's been involved in everything Superman because Tom Taylor had a big part, in
yep.
this with Superman, son of Kal-El, and so I think it was Tom Bellos on Twitter earlier. I retweeted or quote tweeted about this book, and it was excellent. Go read it. And he says, well, how many times is DC going to sort of reboot a series?
Mm,
This even though it's a Superman #1. This isn't a reboot. The plan for Superman has been in the works for years, going back to Future State. When Superman, in the Pages of Action comics, just prior to Future State, where Superman had to leave and go off world, that gets touched upon a little bit in Superman, son of Superman, there, and then he finally makes his grand return back to Earth, and now this is where that story is picking up. So it's just been one long story, and I think it's been excellent. How do I want to say this? Um, excellently executed.
mm,
That's a tough thing to say. Perfectly executed. There we go. A little more
nice
eloquent
job.
there. It's just been really great storytelling, and I know that people, are either hot or cold on Superman. Some people think he's too OP and he's boring. And that's sort of the same issue that Marvel has with Captain America. But like, I just think the way they've been building this, how they've been focusing on John Kent and building him up and separating him from his father, both character wise, personal wise, and then bringing Clark back and where he's going from here after being gone for so long. This was an excellent issue, and I loved how they used Lex Luthor. I loved
Hmm,
Lois in this issue. It was really good storytelling. Like Williamson, like I loved his stuff on Robin.
yeah.
I thought he really fleshed out, like he had a command of Damian Wayne, better than anyone I've read,
Hmm.
and he's got a great command on Clark, on Superman, and I think what he's going to be building here, and where this character and the story is sort of going forward, is going to be excellent. I can't wait to see where he takes it.
Man, looking at League of Comic Geeks, the covers for this, oh my
Dope.
god, Yeah, Jamal Campbell draws the main cover, and there is
Oh
like,
yes,
yep.
I forgot to mention Jamal Campbell is the main artist on this. I'm really used to a lot of his cover work,
Mm,
which is top tier stuff.
yep.
He's one of the best, and his interiors for this book, excellent, excellent,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent.
I'm excited to give this one a look, and I'm definitely going to be picking up at least one of these just from looking at the covers. I mean, I would think it seems like there's a cover for everybody in here. And like there's stuff that I feel like I haven't seen. Like there's one with Superman, like a picture of him like doing bicep curls, and he's like
Yeah,
a frame on a brick wall. I think I'm going to pick up the Daily Planet one with Lois on the cover. That's pretty cool. That one's by Ariel Cologne, and there's quite a few other ones
they
too.
had
Like
that. They had that one. I wanted the blue foil, but they didn't. Newbury Comics didn't
that one
have
looks
it.
sick.
They had the Jim one, but I believe that one was a little pricey.
Mhm.
I got the Andy Kubert one. And I got just the regular main cover, but there was a black and white variant that I almost grabbed. I think it was like $12, and I almost just pulled the trigger on it, but I just, I grabbed the one in color instead. But yeah, the covers on this have been fantastic.
The Jorge Jimenez one looks like,
Oh, that was the other one I
yeah,
almost grabbed
that
too.
looks like a throwback one for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I mean, Jorge Jimenez does a great job. Which, by the way, when I talk about, oh, I didn't do a catching up, I'm terrible about this. I didn't mention that I've been reading Nemesis Reloaded. I caught up on that because we don't get review copies of that. It is a reboot. So like I could honestly talk about that again on the show here. Like I feel
Nice.
like that, like unless you're reading it, but it was like it's off to a good start. But we'll cross that bridge another time. We got other stuff to get to here. Speaking of all this Superman, Joe, it is as you do. You lead us off on our main line. What do you got for me?
So I mean, this couldn't have worked out any better. We talk about Superman, a new Superman book from DC this week, and now it's Super Tuesday, baby, and we
Mm,
both picked Superman properties to discuss. And so this week I'm discussing All Star Superman, written by Grant Morrison, with art by Frank Quietly, colors by Jamie Grant, and letters by Phil Balsman. And so I read this book a long time ago because I
mm,
believe this first came out in 2005, but I didn't read it as it was ongoing. I had picked up the trade sometime later. But anyways, the reason why this book, I chose this book to talk about is because we talked about to kick off the show, like James Gunn a few weeks ago sort of had his State of the Union for the future of sort of the DC cinematic universe and television universe. And he didn't mention this book specifically, but a week or two prior to his sort of, big announcement, James Gunn is very crafty. He doesn't do, anything just willy nilly. We saw that when, with the first Guardians movie, the second Guardians movie. He's done it a little bit less, I feel, with the third one. He hasn't been teasing it as much, but like he would just have
mhm,
these very cryptic type tweets trying to
mhm,
give you Easter eggs, right? Into sort of what he's planning or what he's thinking. And in one of his tweets, he goes, "Oh, great morning for comics and coffee," or something to that effect. And he had a Superman comic opened up, and some investigative skills was able to determine that it was All Star Superman.
mhm,
So you got to think that in some way, shape, or form, he's using that book as either, just he's either trying to better understand the character, or he wants to use this book in some sort of way, shape, or form with like you want to talk about reboots, they're rebooting Superman again.
mhm,
So I was like, this we got to talk about this book on the show. I'm a big Superman guy. So it just made sense. So there weren't a lot of great synopsi for this book. So I just kind of found one that I felt was pretty on the ball there. So, touching on all the classic aspects of the Superman mythology, starting with the daring rescue of a doomed group of helionauts on the surface of the sun, the massive amounts of solar radiation affect Superman in a way no one could possibly anticipate except Lex Luthor. So, I talked about how I loved Lex in Williamson's first issue of Superman. Well, this might be, one of the best iterations of Lex Luthor. He's a great villain in this, series, and this might be one of the best Superman stories. Period. I
mhm,
remember there was a long time where I wasn't, reading comics on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, and I was just sort of grabbing, trades. And one of the things I did early on was I just Googled top 10 Superman graphic novels. And this is, on the top of that list. So it'd been a while since I had read it, and I loved rereading it again because I forgot, how it sort of touched upon Hercules's 12 labors. The 12 labors of Hercules. And that's sort of what this book is.
Hmm.
It's the 12 labors of Superman. And what this book revolves around is, Superman's, you know, his mortality. It happens right in the first issue with events that happen. Superman, as it says there in the synopsis, is trying to save some people from dying on the surface of the sun, but getting that close to the sun uh, really fucks up Superman. And essentially he gets radiation poisoning, and he's on borrowed time.
Hmm.
And so this book really sort of explores what mortality might be like for Superman. And knowing who that character is, he's going to want to do as much good as he possibly can before his time is up. And there's other things that he wants to accomplish as well. And so I can see why James Gunn is likes this book so much, other than it being just a really good story, is that it's really emotional. And there's
Hmm.
there's some elements there between Clark and Pa Kent. We know that James Gunn loves that father son dynamic. We've seen it
Hmm.
in time and time again in Guardians of the Galaxy. So I could see why that attracts him, because there's some really good storytelling to be had there. But this is just a really well crafted story. And if you're not a Superman fan, this isn't your typical Superman, I'm OP, I can do everything, and there's no, it's not. Um you see a very different Superman in this book, which I love. You get a very bumbling Clark Kent, maybe
Hmm.
more so than I feel is necessary. Like in Christopher Reeves live action Superman movies, like I think he plays sort of the bumbling Clark Kent pretty well. I feel like this book just takes it a notch or two, a little bit beyond that, which at times feels a little bit much. But Superman as an OP character, no, he's just
I like that.
he's a really engaging superhero, because again, he knows he doesn't have much time left, and the tasks and the labors that he accomplishes or sets out to accomplish, they're very specific things. And it's not like everything is a uh you know the world is doomed, I've got to save the entire planet kind of thing. They're very specific things. And his relationship with Lois in this book, is excellent. I thought Jimmy Olsen, who's another character that I would say is prominent in this book, but he's in there a lot. He provides some great comic relief. He's really good
Hmm.
in this. But what I really loved was Grant Morrison's take on Hercules's 12 labors, and you get that with Superman. And what's great too is that, like, it almost becomes anthology like, where once you
Hmm.
kind of figure out what's going, each issue sort of revolves around a different labor of Superman, which tells a great story within that issue and still applies to the overarching arc
Nice.
of this book. So it's 12 issues. You can get it in trade paperback form. And like I said before, like, Lex Luthor is great. He's a great villain, and
Hmm.
he's doing a lot of it from behind bars. That Lex is playing, chess, while even Superman is playing checkers. Is great. Pulling the strings. The way Morrison writes him and sets everything up, and then the way it comes to a conclusion at the end is absolutely, fantastic. So, before I get into why I think, some other reasons why I think, Gunn might have, put that little tease about this book out there. The characters, Superman, obviously Lois Lane, Lex Luthor. I talked about Jimmy, but also Dr. Leo Quantum is a character in this book who Superman, saves at the beginning, and his entire purpose is trying to find a way to save Superman, from dying. So he's a great character, in this book as well. And so what I think how this book could play into, a potential sort of reboot of Superman,
Hmm.
in the DC EU, we'll call it to keep it simple, is
Sure.
you can't do a straight adaptation of this book because we've already dealt with Superman and dying and his mortality in the Snyderverse. And there's one thing I know for certain: James Gunn is running as far away, from Snyder as humanly fucking possible. So you're not going to bring in a new actor to do Superman only to tell a story about, his impending doom and possibly him coming back, all that stuff, right? But there's great elements of this. Like, you could write a movie about like a young Superman trying to figure, what his deal is in going through these 12 labors as sort of like his rite of passage from going from young Clark Kent of Smallville to becoming the Superman that we know and love. Like, Zack Snyder tried to do that at the end of Man of Steel. Like, you see him throughout that entire movie trying to figure out, like, how to be Superman. And despite how everyone hated the ending, like, Superman doesn't kill. I thought him killing Zod was, I actually enjoyed that because for me, that was like the moment of like, no, that's not how I need to act. That's not how to be Superman, and growing from that. So
Hmm.
I could see this book, excuse me, is acting as that sort of like, these are the 12 trials, the 12 labors, whatever it is, of maturing from Smallville Clark to Superman, to Justice League Superman, say.
Okay.
And so I think, like, when you read this book, even though it focuses on you know mortality, you could spin it and write it in such a way where it's a beginning rather than a potential end.
Gotcha.
And I think, like, uh, Lex Luthor and some of the characters, like, he can draw upon the traits from this book to Lex Luthor needs a serious revamp after, Jesse Eisenberg's
Hmm.
portrayal of him,
Hmm.
from Batman v Superman. And I loved, what's her name is Lois Lane. I thought she was a great Lois Lane.
Amy Adams.
Amy Adams. I thought she was tremendous. But again, it seems like Gunn wants to sort of take, at least the Superman universe, and you sort of start fresh, start anew with all of that. But the characters, the way they're written, the way they're constructed in this book, it's excellent. Like, if you're not a
Hmm.
Superman fan, like, you have to be living under a rock not to know who Superman is. So you could read this book without having read any other Superman title before and absolutely love it. Some of the,
Hmm.
the villains that are used are great. Parasite, Bizarro. There's an entire issue that's sort of dedicated to sort of
Hmm.
Bizarro in that world, which is excellent. So great use of villains. Just great storytelling all around. I could see how this could be spun into the new DCEU. And there was an animated film. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I can't speak to it. But I feel like it varies a bit from the book.
Gotcha. I'll tell you what. I was ready to ask you questions about how Gunn was going to. I know we were planning on like talking about how Gunn was going to draw upon like this and for the character and everything. But even I didn't even need the qualifier of like how it's going to be different from Snyder's and what he did with Superman because like, as much as Superman does die in that, and like that's the whole Death of Superman comic that we're drawing upon there. That didn't feel like, oh, we're talking about his mortality and all this different stuff. Yeah, I know in Justice League, it's like in that post-war of post-world, like post-Superman's death's world, whatever. But like there's difference there. Like we're not like dealing with the character's internal, like, understanding of his mortality, where he doesn't seem like he's mortal to everybody else. That right away just sounds immensely different. Like, maybe some people, like the average fan, is not going to see it as such. But when you say it's talking about doing it as the beginning, as the origin, I really like that because again, like every time you do Superman and it's like we're introducing him, it's like he's invincible. Like he's
Yeah.
not going to lose the fight. So now that we're talking about that more so, in that lens of like, he's got some stuff to worry about. I really like that a lot.
Yeah, and I also feel when you if it's a huge if this is going to be the basis for Gunn's Superman and you're rebooting it, you also can't start a reboot with like a potential, dealing with his mortality because you kind of have to reestablish the character in this new universe. Now, what you could do is, you could find a way to make this a trilogy somehow,
Mm.
right? And sort of tell this story across two or three different movies, while having like incorporating other stories as well. But like, I don't know, for me, like if he's going to go this route, I would love to see this as a beginning, right, and sort of flip it, and sort of use it as a catalyst of, making that transition from, OP teenager,
Mm.
trying to hide his, and figure out and, deal with everything that's happening with him to becoming that, Justice League level, hero that Superman goes on to become.
The larger thing that comes out of this is if you guys are wondering like, oh, where else is James Gunn going to pull from? Look at Grant Morrison's work at DC.
No,
Because I
yes,
mean, because obviously I feel like there's a couple titles besides Superman, All Star Superman that Morrison had that Gunn has already talked about. But just I think that's a good jumping off point for anybody who's trying to figure out where to begin with stuff. But awesome, this I felt good with Gunn at the helm already, but I feel really good at this point now. Having heard you talk about All Star Superman, like just for that alone, never mind the title that I'm about to talk about. Is there anything else that you had to add about Superman?
yeah, no, like I said, like if you're like one of those people that like, yeah, Superman's lame, he's not
Mm,
my, Morrison is a hell of a writer,
mm.
and he's not going to write, fluff, just boring, basic, lame storylines. And this is a book that if you're not a Superman fan, I feel like could at least get you be like, okay, that was a damn good book. You
Mm.
know, Superman is not as lame as I thought.
Okay, I'm very interested in giving this a look after hearing you talk about it. But I will say, if you aren't a huge Superman person, you're like, you know what? It's like I hear you, Joe, and like I'll see the movie and this is great, but I'm not sold on reading it. I'll tell you what you should pick up instead. If you're looking at to read one of the things that Gunn is talking about, one of the titles that he's alluded to already, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is the book that I'm talking about, written by Tom King, art by Bill Quist Evely, I believe is how you say her name. She's also a Wonder Woman artist. Colors by Mateus Lopes, who you may or may not remember that name. He is the colorist on Step by Bloody Step. Of course, again, you mentioned Ty Spurrier earlier. He was the writer of that series. That's the series that had no dialogue, or at least no legible dialogue throughout there. So a lot of all the art had to tell the story there. And then the letter on this is Clayton Cowles, who, of course, we see his work fairly frequently. Synopsis on this 8-issue series: Kara Zor-El has seen some epic adventures over the years, but she now finds herself without meaning or purpose. Here she is, a young woman who saw her planet destroyed and was sent to Earth to protect a baby cousin who ended up not needing her. What was it all for? Wherever she goes, people only see her through the lens of Superman's fame. And just when Supergirl thinks she's had enough, everything changes. An alien girl seeks her out for a vicious mission. Her world has been destroyed, and the bad guys responsible are still out there. She wants revenge, and if Supergirl doesn't help her, she'll do it herself, whatever the cost. So I mean, right there alone sounds like an interesting story. But admittedly, like I didn't give this a look when it was ongoing. You didn't give this a look when it was ongoing. What?
Well, so I was gonna say because this had come out, so it was part of DC's Infinite Frontier. It had just come out post Future State, and I think by the end of Future State, I think we were a little like, neither of us were really geeked up about reading the next slate of stuff coming out that was part of the Infinite Frontier. But I remember reading some Supergirl from Future State going, okay, that was pretty decent. But again, this is like you said, I don't think we ever, either of us really followed up
Yeah, that's right. This is
on the
Infinite
Infinite
Frontier.
Frontier stuff.
Yeah, that's right. This was Infinite Frontier. I didn't see it on the on the trade paperback cover. But if you look at the first issue of it, again, I'm looking on League of Comic Geeks here, you see it on that first issue, but then the rest of it, they don't really have it. It seems like on the rest of the covers, which may or may not have been deliberate. But either way, this is a story that you can just read alone. Like it doesn't, you don't need to know other things that are necessarily going on. You don't need to worry about the Infinite Frontier stuff. You can just pick this up. As long as you know Supergirl is related to Superman, you're gonna be fine. And then I think that honestly, if it's just that and you don't know much else, you're in for a good ride. Because I know Supergirl. I never watched the show, but again, not a big Superman fan. So similarly, I just never was like, oh, I want to give Supergirl a look. I just figured, oh, we're kind of dealing with more of the same from a personality perspective. And I don't know if that's always been the case. Maybe it has. Not the case here, because again, she's living in her cousin's shadow all the time, or she's just dealing with like the, oh, you're like a woman and I'm underestimating you constantly, because that always happens. So of course, Kara Zor-El at the center of this. And then Ruthie Null is, and I believe I'm saying her name right, she's the alien child. I mean, I don't think she's going to be too upset if I got it wrong. But her father was killed by Krem of the Yellow Hills, and that is the whole event that sparks things. She is also the narrator for this series. And if, as you read it, I don't want to give it more away than it appears that she is sharing this story directly with someone else or a group of people maybe in front of her. It's something to that end, but she is the narrator. So we're getting commentary on, she's talking about her own internal stuff, but then also she's talking about how she perceives Supergirl. And she's also like, we call her an alien. And I'm like, yes, that's true. But at the same time, like, she just looks like she's a human from another planet. Doesn't have any powers or anything to that degree. She just doesn't know Supergirl, which also I think plays in really well to readers like you or myself who haven't read a lot of Supergirl. So if we know who she is, this character doesn't even know who Supergirl was when she meets her. So I think that all provides like a really interesting experience for readers who don't know her well. Now, again, I don't know if Supergirl has always come across as jaded, but she absolutely is here. So if you have read Supergirl stuff previously, and maybe that's a difference, like that's just something of note. James Gunn has talked about that. And I think that's a great way to differentiate her from Superman when we right away off the rip in DC. And it makes perfect sense too, because when you think about it, and never really like hit me, Joe, thinking about Supergirl, like how, oh yeah, this is his cousin who survived all of the Krypton's undoing and everything like that, and now she's got she's his older cousin, so she has a different experience and everything. I just like assume like, oh, she was a kid and she ended up leaving on the ship right after her cousin did, or right as her cousin did, like separately, whatever, blah blah blah. It's a very different experience. And like Tom King goes into that in one of the later issues, maybe middle, maybe like issue 5 or issue 6, something like that. But that was probably my favorite one, because I already could see how she was different from Superman from a personality standpoint. And it makes me like her more, because we talk about like Captain America and Superman, where the issues are like Boy Scout, right? Like she's not that. Like, yes, she is a good-hearted person, but she is not a Boy Scout, because she's constantly like, people are constantly pushing on her, whether it's, oh, you're related to Superman, screw you, I'm gonna come at you, or or you're like a woman and I don't respect you, all this different stuff, and they don't know that she's Kryptonian, all these things. Like, people constantly push her buttons. Still a good person, but she may not go like that last step, like that Superman will also generally won't go, but she'll pop someone in the mouth if like they're pissing her off enough. You know what I mean? Where like Superman will be like the bigger man and walk away. Supergirl doesn't always do that. And I like that about her, and I don't blame her. Yeah. She has to do a lot more shit than her cousin does, from that standpoint. So, and I think that this character, like where Wonder Woman was like this female icon for like coming out of the original DC plan, so a master DC plan, whatever. I think Supergirl can go and do the same thing and really take off. So I'm very excited to see who they cast for her in this one, because I think like, yeah, it may not seem like there's a lot of pressure here, but I think that she really has a chance to take DC to another level when they get into her story. Now, and the other thing is too, like, I don't read a whole lot of Tom King. You've read some stuff, and all the Batman jokes aside and everything, I just like don't read as much Tom King. but he definitely, like, there's a lot of exposition, a lot of, there's a lot more narration or not so much dialogue, but there's a lot more narration and digging into stuff. And the journey that we're going on here is basically like, this is no secret. Like, it happens like in the first page. Ruthie Knoll, again, her dad was killed by Krem of the Yellow Hills. They are going after Krem of the Yellow Hills. Like, that is what happens throughout the course of 8 issues. And there's like other people that you meet along the way. I'm not going to get into those like characters or different aliens that you meet just because I don't want to spoil anything. But it's an adventure that you would think, oh, this could probably done maybe in an arc, maybe even a mini story. But they do bounce around to a lot of planets, but it's all about getting to know the character of Kara Zor-El, and I really really like that. Like, it's just because they take their time, and there's so many little nuances in her development, and why I think like this, when you talk about like how James Gunn in the DCEU is going to use like this to as the jumping off point or the introduction for this character. This, like, we've heard it before, like origin stories for superhero characters can be a little mundane, can be a little dull, because like, oh, we've seen the Pearl's story a million times, we know about Superman and Smallville, or all this stuff. Now, we haven't gotten that necessarily with Kara Zor-El. Maybe we did in the show, and I don't know. But what's so good here is like, you are going to hear about her origin story, I would think, as we watch this. I really hope they don't do it to begin the episode. I mean, to begin the movie. I hope they do it a little bit later on, like we got in the story. But it's like, you get that, and at that point you already know so much about her. And to me, this feels more like the Old Man Logan movie, like the Logan movie, in that like she's jaded. She's not gruff and like like Logan is. They're different than that. But she's still jaded, and you're gonna see like all the stuff that she goes through and learn about who she is as a person. And then you'll get her origin story a little bit later on. But it's a great way to meet a character, learn a character, see her push in different ways, whether it's through Ruthie, through all the struggles that she goes with, or what the weight of the world or the weight of the universe that she's been carrying on her shoulders since that traumatic experience she had on Krypton. And it's funny because you think about it like, oh, Superman went through it and she went through it. Oh, it's the same thing. It's not, because Superman was a baby. Like, he had no clue. Yeah, he, his parents and everything like that, but he didn't live that life. She did. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't specify it in here, but she was either like a teenager or probably in her 20s, something to that degree. Like, where she's like, I had a life on Krypton, and then I lost it. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. And then I haven't really touched on the art in any capacity, Joe, but Evely and Lopez, or I had Lopez. Yeah,
I would assume it's Lopez. Yeah.
yeah. But well, Lopes is Brazilian, and maybe Portuguese, but either way, they are, wow, what a pairing! Like, seriously, like, in Lopes' colors, we've talked about him before. Like, he's got some other, pardon the pun, but like otherworldly stuff. And I just would love to know if they were like, how that team came together. And I gotta imagine that some editor at DC was like, this just makes perfect sense. We've seen Lopes' color work and everything, and he's going to elevate Evely's like lines to another level, or in like Evely's lines like complement Lopes's colors. But just, I would love to know how those two kind of collaborate. I'm sure it's not this long drawn out thing, but it just seems like it could be, because I feel like I had a word earlier and I didn't write it down, and I meant to, but like there's something about this art that I don't want to say magical, because that's not it. It's not epic either.
Cohesiveness.
No, no, because I wouldn't even say it's like there. I mean, there is cohesiveness to it, but there's just like it's just like a magical nature to it. Gorgeous. No, that's what it is. I know it's such a simple word, but gorgeous. Like, this is actually gorgeous artwork. I love the main cover. It's really cool. I wish that the main cover for the 8th issue, which they're the team for that one. I wish that was the cover here. You get to it when you get to the 8th chapter. It's really awesome. Like, you can't, because it's gonna feel a little spoilery in a way, but I really liked it. And all around, like, pick up Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, especially if you want to get to know this character more ahead of the movie. Obviously, we're ways away from that though.
Yeah, and I checked, both of these books are on Hoopla. So if you have Hoopla, you can, I mean, we suggest, supporting the artists and the writers and the creative team, and buy the trades. But if you're a Hoopla junkie and you want to read this from your tablet, read from home, these are
Mhm.
books that like you're maybe on the fence, you can find them there. I mean, this sounds great, and I think what is exciting about them sort of taking from this book from the way you described it is that they can have a little fun with the character in the sense that you can really, I think, go down a bit of an avenue where uh, you use the word jaded, and I would say also you could probably make her a little flawed,
Oh yeah.
not in a bad way, but like, and I don't want to go as far as to say like Jason Todd because that would be too extreme.
No, yeah.
But like you could see a character like Superman willing to do or able to do or go to some places that, as you said, Cal Clark wouldn't go to. And you can explore that a little bit. She can live in that gray area a little bit more, right?
Mhm.
Because Superman isn't gray.
Mhm.
He's as white knight as it gets, right?
Right. Yep.
And I think that's exciting to someone like James Gunn, because I think he can thrive, in that space. And we got a little glimpse of Kara, in the Flash trailer, and man, I know that
Mm.
like that universe, like it's just sort of like the bookend to that. Everything's going to reset, and they're going to find a way to, with Flash, it's going to be very easy to sort of like do all that. I kind of hope. I love the look of that suit, and I can't remember who the actress is. And even though Kara Zor-El is, she's typically blonde, this actress isn't. She's got the short dark hair, but like I love that look, and I think that actress, and just a brief glimpses we get of her in the trailer, sounds like she would fit the mold of this character from this book perfectly.
Yeah.
So if you were going to bring anyone over, just do that,
Yeah,
right?
Sasha Cali is what is
Okay.
at least looks that's how it reads to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. The one thing I will say too is like it seems like what they did there was they basically wanted to they didn't like with all the issues that we're having with Cavill and whatnot going on. I mean, this is basically Flashpoint, and you need Superman in
Yes.
Flashpoint. So you went and did Supergirl instead, so it takes care of everything. But yeah, like
But
she with an edge, yeah. If she pulls it off well, if people receive her well, that'd be great.
yeah,
You
because I
can definitely
think
go there.
yeah, because I think, Gunn he went out of his way to praise the Flash movie,
Mm,
which I get. He kind of has to because of all the negative press, and because of Ezra Miller,
mhm.
uh, being well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just say it.
But like, I don't think he would. I think there's going to be elements of this movie, main actor aside,
Mhm.
that I think, because I have a feeling he had to go in there and do some major reworking of this thing,
Probably,
right?
probably.
And I hope that character of like, yeah, they had the issues with Cavill and all that, but I hope that character of Kara Zor-El, I hope she nails it,
Mhm,
and I hope they're able to bring her over and then
mhm.
run with it.
The one thing that I will say though is, and this is where like when I said why there's like I feel similarities to the Logan movie, but at the same time, like this, she's not like that badass. Like to me, it's more the worn down, tired, just done with it all, and like more of that is what I expect from this character when we see her get thrown in the mix. So maybe I don't know what Sasha Cali looks like. Her character's going to be a little bit more unstable, which I'm here for. It makes a lot of sense based on Flashpoint if they're trying to do a lot of stuff with this character. So that's the only thing that I do want to throw out there when people like they're starting to develop their expectations as they listen to this, and then go and read this a little bit later on. But yeah, I think this is a great this again, like this is why I feel good about one of the reasons why I feel good about Gunn in DC, and honestly, why I was clamoring for him well before the rumors started. I think it was around Suicide Squad. I remember on Change My Mind asking Casey Walsh, like, when are they going to name James Gunn as their Kevin Feige
Yeah.
over DC? The guy knows what he's doing. He cares about this stuff. He reads the stuff, and I mean, it's just we've seen how important it is to have people who actually read the things, calling the shots.
Well, I think why he works so well is that he understands the characters, and he's a great director to get that out of the actors and actresses that he works with, but writing a story that evokes all the emotions, all the feels, right? He's a
Mm-hmm.
great storyteller. He's able to do that, and you've got great characters, in DC. Some might argue better characters in DC
Yep.
than you have in Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of how you think on that, like there's great potential, and it just was clear that Jeff Johns and Snyder just weren't the guys to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Suicide Squad was great, and so very excited
The
to
Suicide Squad.
the
And
Suicide Squad.
Peacemaker too. He did Peacemaker. Keep
Yeah,
forgetting about
well,
that.
yeah. But like that's like there's an outline there, there's a skeleton there. I can't wait to see how they flesh it all out.
Absolutely. Exciting stuff. And as a reminder, always can make sure you guys go and subscribe to the audio channels if you haven't already. Leave a rating or review, helps the show out a ton. If you want to get our Friar side chats, whenever we talk to any of these awesome creators, the only place you're going to be able to get those is on our audio channels. So subscribe there. Next week we are going to be tiptoeing around the start of March. I believe March 1st is the Wednesday.
Solicit.
So it looks like we got a solicit. Yeah, we didn't do one for February because of all the interviews that we did in January. So excited to get one of those. Lord knows it screwed the both of us up not doing that. So
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, until then, Joe, stay sexy.
You fucking know it, baby.